I never expected my world to tilt on its axis because of her. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and immediately drew every pair of eyes without even trying. Confident, magnetic, untouchable. Everyone knew she was off limits, spoken for, tied by loyalty, and surrounded by an invisible wall that warned you to keep your distance. And yet, I couldn't. The first time I saw her was at a mutual friend's dinner party. The room buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but all I could hear was the sound of her laugh, a soft, sultry sound that made my skin tingle. She sat across the room, leaning casually against the arm of a chair, her dark hair spilling down her shoulders in waves. She didn't notice me at first, but I noticed everything about her, the way her fingers traced the rim of her glass, the curve of her smile, the heat in her eyes when she locked them on whoever she was speaking to. And then, as if fate had grown impatient, our eyes met. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Her gaze was steady, curious, almost amused, as though she already knew the effect she had on me. I felt a pull, an ache that whispered, dangerous. Don't even think about it. But that only made me think about her more. Later, when our host introduced us, she offered her hand with a warmth that startled me. Her touch lingered just a second too long, enough to send sparks up my arm. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice low, velvety, and dripping with something unspoken. I smiled, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was unraveling. Likewise, I managed, though my voice betrayed me with the faintest tremor. We spoke only briefly that night, caught in snippets of conversation whenever the party allowed. She teased me lightly about my drink choice, leaned in just close enough that I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and intoxicating. I told myself it was harmless, just playful banter between new acquaintances. But my body knew better. My pulse was racing, my chest tight, my imagination already wandering to places I shouldn't let it go. She belonged to someone else. That fact alone should have been enough to slam the door shut on any forbidden desire. But instead, it only made it harder to resist. Every stolen glance, every subtle brush of her hand when she passed me, every laugh shared, it all fed a hunger I couldn't control. By the end of the night, I knew two things with absolute certainty. She was off limits, and I wanted her more than anything I'd ever wanted before. The night of the dinner party left me restless. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her face replaying in my mind like a song I couldn't get out of my head. The way she laughed, the way her eyes lingered on me, none of it felt casual. And yet, I reminded myself, she was still untouchable. Days passed, but she never drifted far from my thoughts. Then, almost like destiny mocking me, I saw her again. A mutual friend had arranged a casual get-together at a small rooftop bar downtown. I wasn't planning to go at first, but when I heard she'd be there, resistance was pointless. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at the edge of the rooftop with the city lights twinkling behind her. She looked effortlessly stunning, dressed down in jeans and a fitted jacket, her hair tied back in a loose bun. Even in simplicity, she commanded attention. "Hey," she said when she spotted me, her lips curving into that teasing smile I remembered all too well. "Hey yourself," I replied, trying not to betray the sudden rush of heat in my chest. The group mingled around us, laughter and music filling the air, but once again, it felt like she and I were in our own bubble. She leaned in closer when we talked, her voice low, her words laced with an ease that felt both natural and dangerous. Every time her arm brushed mine, every time her eyes lingered, I felt my restraint weaken. At one point, someone called her away, but before she left, she leaned into my ear. "Don't go anywhere," she murmured, her breath warm against my skin. It sent a shiver straight down my spine. I didn't move an inch. I couldn't. When she returned, she carried 2 drinks and slid one toward me with a playful look. "Thought you might like this better than your usual," she teased, clearly remembering my choice from the dinner party. "You remembered," I said, surprised. "Of course," she replied, her eyes locking onto mine, unblinking, as though the weight of that simple sentence carried more meaning than it should. As the night deepened, the group began to thin out. People drifted away, leaving the rooftop quieter, more intimate. Eventually, it was just the two of us standing by the railing, the city stretching endlessly below. "You're quiet tonight," she said softly, her shoulder brushing mine again, whether by accident or design I couldn't tell. I turned to her, my throat dry, my heart racing. Maybe I just don't trust myself to say the wrong thing. Her lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. And what would the wrong thing be? In that moment, the air between us shifted. The tension was undeniable, electric, dangerous. I wanted to say it, to admit that every fiber of my being ached for her, but the words tangled in my throat. Instead, I held her gaze, silently confessing everything I couldn't say aloud. And the way she looked back at me. It was as if she already knew. The silence between us on that rooftop was louder than any noise the city below could make. Her gaze held mine with a weight that made it impossible to look away, as though she was daring me to cross a line we both knew existed. My chest tightened, my breath shallow, every nerve in my body screaming with the awareness of her so close beside me. She finally broke the silence, her voice soft but steady. "You're different from the others." I frowned lightly. "What do you mean?" "They chase," she said simply, her lips curling in a small smile. "You don't. But you make it hard for me to stop thinking about you." Her words struck me like lightning. For a moment, I forgot about consequences, about what it meant for me to even entertain this. She was off limits, but in that second, all I wanted was to close the space between us and taste the promise in her voice. Instead, I swallowed, forcing a laugh. "Careful. You'll make me believe you actually like me." Her eyes glittered under the dim rooftop lights. What if I do? The world seemed to stop spinning. My body leaned toward her instinctively, but I pulled back at the last second, clutching the railing as if it could ground me. "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered, though my voice trembled with the opposite of conviction. She tilted her head, studying me. "Maybe I shouldn't. But I'm tired of pretending." My pulse hammered in my ears. She was close enough now that I could smell her perfume again, delicate, intoxicating, undeniably her. She reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, her fingers grazing my cheek with a tenderness that nearly undid me. The rooftop door creaked open, and the spell broke. A couple of stragglers stumbled out, laughing loudly, shattering the fragile bubble that had formed around us. She withdrew her hand quickly, her expression slipping back into something casual, unbothered. But I saw it. The hunger in her eyes, the same one that echoed in my chest. We said little after that, just exchanged knowing glances as the night wound down. Eventually, she walked me to my car, her presence at my side both comforting and tormenting. When I unlocked the door, she leaned against the frame, her voice low. "Drive safe. And don't overthink tonight." "Too late for that," I murmured with a shaky smile. Her lips curved, almost mischievous. "Good. I want you to think about me." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing frozen, my heart pounding as though I'd just run miles. And she was right. I thought about her the entire drive home. About her words, her touch, her eyes that told me everything I needed to know but shouldn't dare to believe. I knew I was already falling fast, hard, and dangerously deep. The days after the rooftop encounter stretched unbearably. Every text notification made my heart race, hoping it was her. Every silence felt heavier, a reminder that I was craving something forbidden. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed with her name on the screen. "Come over. I need to get out of my head. Just us, no one else." I hesitated for only a second before replying on my way. I didn't even ask where her partner was. I didn't want to know. When I arrived, she was waiting at the door, barefoot in an oversized sweater that hung off one shoulder. The sight of her like that, unguarded, intimate, nearly unraveled me. "You came," she said, her voice soft, but her eyes burned with something deeper. "Of course," I answered, stepping inside, my pulse pounding in my throat. Her apartment was dimly lit, warm, cozy, smelling faintly of vanilla and wine. She poured us each a glass without asking, then curled up on the couch, patting the seat beside her. I sat, careful to keep space between us, though every part of me wanted to close the gap. We talked at first about work, about friends, about nothing at all. But every laugh, every glance, every accidental brush of her hand against mine pushed me closer to the edge. Finally, she shifted, turning to face me fully. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if we stopped pretending?" she asked. Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. "All the time," I admitted before I could stop myself. She exhaled, her lips parting slightly, as though she'd been waiting for me to say it. Slowly, deliberately, she reached out, her fingers grazing my hand, then curling around it. The warmth of her touch sent fire racing through my veins. "You make this so hard," she whispered, her eyes searching mine. "Then stop fighting it," I breathed, my voice barely more than a plea. For a moment, we hovered there, suspended in the gravity of what we both knew was about to happen. The air between us thickened, humming with possibility and danger. She leaned in, so close I could feel her breath against my lips, the heat of her body radiating toward mine. But just before our mouths touched, she pulled back, her eyes filled with conflict. "We shouldn't." "I know," I said, though my hand tightened around hers. "But I don't care." Her resolve shattered with a soft, desperate sound, and in the next heartbeat, her lips were on mine. The kiss was electric, hungry, trembling, filled with everything we'd been holding back. My body melted into hers, years of restraint crumbling in an instant. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, her forehead rested against mine. "God help me," she whispered. "I want you more than I've ever wanted anything." And I knew then, there was no going back. The kiss lingered in the air like smoke, thick and impossible to ignore. My lips still burned from the taste of her, my body thrumming with an urgency I'd never felt before. She was pressed against me, her hand still tangled in mine, but her eyes flickered with a storm of conflict. "We can't," she whispered, though her lips brushed mine with every word, betraying her resolve. "Then tell me to leave," I murmured, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "Tell me you don't want this." Her silence said everything. Instead of pushing me away, she pulled me closer, capturing my mouth in a kiss so fierce it stole my breath. Her hands slid into my hair, tugging me deeper, and I responded with equal hunger, my fingers tracing the line of her jaw before settling at the curve of her waist. The sweater slipped from her shoulder, and I couldn't resist pressing my lips to the newly exposed skin. She gasped, tilting her head back, her body arching toward mine as though it had been waiting for this all along. "God, you drive me insane," she breathed, her voice breaking with want. Her words only fueled me. Our kisses grew rougher, more desperate, as though we were both afraid this moment might vanish if we didn't claim it fully. I pulled her onto my lap, and she straddled me with a fluidity that left me dizzy. The heat between us was undeniable, unstoppable. We broke only for air, our foreheads pressed together, our breaths mingling in the quiet. The world outside her apartment no longer existed. There was only her taste, her touch, the way she made me feel alive in a way I'd never known before. Her hands roamed with trembling boldness, slipping under my shirt, tracing the curves of my body like she'd been imagining it for weeks. My skin prickled beneath her fingertips, every nerve alight. I couldn't stop the soft moan that escaped me, and her eyes darkened with desire at the sound. "You're dangerous," she whispered, her lips brushing the shell of my ear. "So are you," I replied, tilting her face back toward mine for another kiss that deepened until we were both lost in it. When she finally pulled back, her lips were swollen, her cheeks flushed, and her voice carried the weight of surrender. "Stay," she said, barely above a whisper. "Don't leave me tonight." I nodded, no hesitation, no second guessing. I wasn't planning to. Her smile was soft, but aching, as though she knew the risk we were both taking, and yet she couldn't bring herself to care. She stood, tugging me gently toward her bedroom, her fingers laced tightly with mine. Each step felt like crossing a line that couldn't be undone. And I didn't want to undo it. I wanted her. All of her. That night, the world finally stopped telling us no. The bedroom was quiet except for the sound of our breathing, heavy with anticipation. The dim light spilled across her skin as she guided me inside, closing the door softly behind us, as if we were sealing away the rest of the world. For a moment, we just stood there, staring at each other, caught in the gravity of what we were about to do. Her hand slid up my arm, pausing at my shoulder before curling gently around the back of my neck. "Are you sure?" she whispered, her eyes wide, searching mine for an answer. "Yes," I breathed, without hesitation. More sure than I've ever been. That was all she needed. She kissed me again, slower this time, with a tenderness that made my chest ache. Her lips moved against mine with a patience that contrasted the hunger we'd shown on the couch, as though she wanted to savor every second of this. And I did too. Our hands explored carefully, reverently, tracing the lines of each other's bodies as if committing them to memory. She pulled my shirt over my head, her fingers trembling just slightly as they skimmed across my skin. I shivered under her touch, not from nerves, but from the overwhelming intensity of finally being wanted by her completely, unreservedly. "You're beautiful," she whispered, her voice breaking, as though the words had escaped without her permission. I smiled against her lips, kissing her deeply in return. "So are you. Too beautiful to resist." Clothes became less important, discarded between kisses, until nothing was left to hide behind. Her body pressed against mine, warm and soft, her skin electrifying beneath my hands. I trailed my fingers along the curve of her spine, marveling at how she shivered in response, how she clung to me like I was something she couldn't let go of. The world shrank down to the rhythm of our breaths, the quiet moans, the whispers of each other's names. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a confession. It wasn't just lust. It was years of longing, of restraint, finally unleashed in a way that felt both reckless and inevitable. She lay beside me, her fingers laced with mine, her forehead resting against mine as if we were one. Her lips brushed the corner of my mouth, trailing soft kisses along my jaw, my neck, until I was trembling beneath her. "I don't care if this is wrong," she murmured, her voice raw, full of need. "All I know is I've never felt this alive." And I understood. Because with her, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't hiding. I was consumed, completely and beautifully, by a love that was supposed to be forbidden, but felt more real than anything else in my life. That night, in the quiet shadows of her room, we gave in fully, our bodies entwined, our hearts colliding, our souls confessing in ways words never could. We weren't just breaking rules. We were breaking free. The morning light crept in through her curtains, soft and golden, spilling across the tangled sheets. For a moment, I didn't move. I simply lay there, my head resting against her shoulder, our legs intertwined, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing as she slept. It was peaceful, almost surreal, as if the world outside didn't exist. I closed my eyes and let the memory of the night wash over me, the way her lips had searched mine with equal parts hunger and tenderness, the way our bodies had found a rhythm that felt timeless, inevitable. It hadn't just been passion. It had been something far deeper, a connection that terrified me with its intensity. She stirred beside me, her hand instinctively tightening around mine as she woke. When her eyes opened, they softened instantly at the sight of me. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice husky, still wrapped in sleep. "Morning," I replied, smiling despite the knot forming in my chest. She brushed a lock of hair from my face, her touch featherlight. For a moment, I thought she might say something that would ruin it all, pull us back into reality where she belonged to someone else. But instead, she leaned in and kissed me, slow and lingering, as though reminding me that what we shared last night wasn't a dream. We lay there in silence, our bodies still close, our breaths mingling. But the silence felt different now, heavier. The weight of what we'd done pressed in, undeniable. I knew it, and I could see in her eyes that she knew it too. Finally, she sat up, running a hand through her hair. "I don't regret it," she said softly, almost to herself. Then, louder, as if she needed me to believe it, "Not 1 second of it." I reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "Neither do I." Her smile was tinged with sadness. "But it's complicated. You know that." Of course I knew. She wasn't free. She was tied to someone else. Someone who trusted her, who had no idea that last night had happened. The thought twisted in my chest, a cruel reminder that love could be both intoxicating and devastating. "I don't want to stop seeing you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I don't know how long I can keep living in two worlds." Her confession cut deep, but I also felt relief, because she wasn't pretending. She wasn't brushing this off as a mistake. What we had meant something, even if it was forbidden. I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly as though I could shield her from the mess we'd created. "We'll figure it out," I whispered against her hair. "One step at a time." She clung to me, silent, as if those words were both a comfort and a curse. And in that quiet morning light, I realized something undeniable. Wanting her had already changed me. But loving her? That would change everything. The days after that morning blurred together, each one thick with longing and guilt. We stole moments when we could, coffee runs that turned into lingering touches, phone calls that stretched late into the night, stolen kisses in places we shouldn't have dared. Every second with her felt intoxicating, but the weight of secrecy pressed heavier on us both. One evening, she showed up at my door unannounced. Her eyes were wild, her voice shaking. "I can't keep doing this," she said, stepping inside before I could answer. My stomach dropped. "Are you saying we're done?" Her hands trembled as she pushed her hair back, pacing my living room like a storm bottled inside her. "I'm saying I can't live like this, pretending nothing's wrong, lying to myself, lying to him. But I also can't stay away from you." I crossed the space between us, taking her hands in mine. "Then don't." She froze, her eyes searching mine, filled with fear and yearning. "It's not that simple. If I choose you, I lose everything I've built. My stability, my reputation, him." And yet, she swallowed hard. "When I'm with you, I feel like I'm finally alive." The confession tore through me. I cupped her face in my hands, forcing her to meet my eyes. "You don't have to decide tonight. But listen to me, love isn't supposed to feel like a cage. If you feel alive with me, then maybe that's the only answer that matters." Her tears slipped free, and she let me pull her into my arms. We stood there, holding each other as though the world could collapse and we wouldn't let go. She kissed me with a desperation that felt like both goodbye and forever, her lips salty with tears, her body trembling against mine. When we finally broke apart, she whispered, "I'm scared." "So am I admitted. But I'd rather risk everything than live without knowing what we could be." The room fell silent, our breaths the only sound. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I'll tell him. I need to be honest. I need to choose." Hope flared in my chest, fragile but burning bright. "And if you choose me?" I asked, my voice breaking. She kissed me again, softer this time, full of promise. "Then I'll finally be free. And you'll be mine, not just in the shadows, but in the light." That night, as she left my apartment with her heart heavy, but her resolve clear, I knew our story wasn't over. It was only beginning. Because sometimes, the love that feels most forbidden is the love that sets you free.